live in interesting times on tonight's headlines. Researchers said the world's oceans are heating up at an accelerating pace as global warming threatens a diverse range of marine life and a major food supply for the planet.
When I say Mexico's going to pay for the wall...
As the U.S. government shutdown reached its 20th day, Trump went to Texas to make his case for building a border wall. He wants $5.7 billion from U.S. funds and has said he might use emergency powers to finance the project. Chinese media touted the mobilization of a far-reaching anti-ship ballistic missile, specifically highlighting its ability to target ships in the South China Sea. And a tearful Andy Murray announced he will likely retire this year due to severe pain from a hip injury, saying next week's Australian Open could be the last tournament of a glittering career. Mama Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us. And now to the news. Researchers said the world's oceans are heating up at an accelerating pace as global warming threatens a diverse range of marine life and a major food supply for the planet. Take a look. Ocean heating is a very important indicator of climate change, and we have robust evidence that it is warming more rapidly than we thought, according to co-author Zeke Housefather, a graduate student in the Energy and Resources Group at the University of Carolina, Berkeley. 2018 is going to be the warmest year on record for the Earth's oceans, according to Zeke Housefather, an energy systems analyst at the independent climate research group Berkeley Earth and an author of the study. He said as of 2017 was the warmest year and 2016 was the warmest year. A new analysis published Thursday in the journal Science found that the oceans are heating up 40% faster on average than a United Nations panel estimated 5 years ago. The researchers also concluded that ocean temperatures have broken records for several straight years. The report said a key factor in the more accurate numbers is an ocean monitoring fleet called Argo, which includes nearly 4,000 floating robots that drift throughout the world's oceans every few days, diving to a depth of 2,000 meters and measuring the ocean's temperature, pH, salinity, and other bits of information as they rise back up. Now, the new analysis shows warming in the ocean is on pace with measurements of the rising air temperature. And if nothing is done to reduce greenhouse gases, the report said models predict that the temperature of the top 2,000 meters of the world's oceans will rise 0.78 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. But the surging water temperatures are already killing off marine ecosystems, raising sea levels and making hurricanes more destructive. As the oceans continue to heat up, scientists say those effects will become more catastrophic. Rainier, more powerful storms like Hurricane Harvey in 2017 and Hurricane Florence in 2018 will become more common, and coastlines around the world will flood more frequently. Coral reefs, whose fish populations are sources of food for hundreds of millions of people, will also come under increasing stress. A fifth of all corals have already died in the past 3 years. A shortage of rain, a booming population, and wasteful consumption have drained Kabul's water basin and sparked a race to the bottom as households and businesses bore deeper and deeper wells in search of the precious resource. Snow has fallen in the city this month, but it's not nearly enough to solve the water shortage. In some areas, the level has dropped 20 meters in the past year. Take a look.
سال قبلی میکنیم 30 متر 40 متر هم زیادترش 50 متر حالی 100 و 110 و 120 و 100 کم نمیکنه مردم و در اینش همی که خشکسالی است.
Kabal's already in a situation of water stress, so we're looking at more immediate, lower impact, lower cost, lower technology solutions that will actually start to fix the problem faster.
Meanwhile, the Greek capital Athens was blanketed with a layer of snow 2 days after officials said 3 people had died as stormy weather and freezing temperatures gripped most of the country. Take a look. Now, the snowfall prompted authorities to close schools and courthouses, while many public offices and banks provided minimal services. Many employees stayed away from work as the snow created traffic problems for a populace unused to driving in the freezing conditions. But Antoine Veridas, a Swiss researcher visiting from Luzon, was delighted by the unexpected snowfall.
Yes, I'm from Switzerland. I came to Athens to visit a friend who lives here. I was not really expecting to have that much snow, but it's great.
A Greek official said that the freezing conditions had claimed 3 lives. Rescue services have received dozens of calls to help people trapped in their cars or homes by heavy snowfall. And on Saturday, firefighters rescued a pair of French hikers stranded in a forest on the island of Lesbos. The poor weather has also disrupted travel, forcing highway closures and coastal ferry and intercity train cancellations. On Friday, a Ryanair flight bound for northern Thessaloniki was rerouted to Timisoara, Romania, because of poor visibility. Meanwhile, snowfall has created chaos in Bavaria and neighboring areas with no sign of letting up. From falling tree warnings to major transport disruption, the extreme weather phenomenon is crippling the south. For days, the German state of Bavaria has been inundated by massive amounts of snow. And on Thursday, Munich police urged drivers to deal with the snow covering their vehicles or face potential fines after tweeting a picture of a car shrouded in ice at a stoplight. German media has dubbed the extreme weather phenomenon as Schnee chaos or snow chaos. In Berchtesgaden, a town in the Bavarian Alps near the Austrian border, Germany's armed forces, the Bundeswehr, had to deliver much-needed supplies in the middle of the night. And that's because the road to the village was cut off by the sheer amount of snowfall. And as such, the military had the only transport vehicles able to reach the area. But Bavaria wasn't the only place in Germany to be affected by the snowfall. North of Bavaria, in the German state of Thuringia, park authorities warned people against entering forests, saying enormous snow loads threatened to bring down numerous trees. Several roads were also closed by deep snow and fallen trees. Local tram services were in no state to run. Meanwhile, the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the Kadisha Village, or Valley rather, and Mount Lebanon are covered by snow after storms hit Lebanon and neighboring Syria. In recent days, the area had been hit by a prolonged patch of severe weather. Waves crashed into the seawall of Beirut, Lebanon during a strong storm that brought freezing temperatures and heavy rainfall to the coast and snow to the Lebanese mountains. The storm damaged several farms in the northern districts, with river river levels in the area rising. The storm paralyzed the sea traffic in Tripoli's Fisherman Port. The Syrian refugees camp in Irsal was blanketed by snow after Norma hit Lebanon. And every year, extreme weather conditions exacerbate the already super vulnerable reality of refugees. Vulnerable Lebanese and Syrian refugees are facing extreme challenges during the storm because most of the tents and shelters have been destroyed. Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Alamin ang mga pinakahuling kaganapan sa loob at labas ng bansa. Agila Balita. Yun din ang masariwang pangyari sa mga lalawigan. Sa Agila Probinsya, ihimayin ang mga pangyari sa Asia. Hatid ng ASEAN in Focus. Pati na ang mga kaganapan sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo sa Eagle News International. Huwag palampasin ang mga pinakahuling pangyayari sa mata ng Agila. Mga balitang makabuluhan. Dapat subaybayan. Dito lamang sa Net 25.
Hey guys, I'm here today in my home state, Jersey City, New Jersey. Make sure you tune into Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. I'm Ace and I am 1 with 25.
President Trump warned of murderers and gangsters spreading across the country during his visit to the U.S.-Mexican border to push his demand for a multi-billion-dollar wall. Take a look. President Trump used the backdrop of the Rio Grande border river at McAllen, Texas, to ramp up what has already turned into a hugely messy political fight with Democratic opponents, resulting in the shutdown of swaths of the U.S. government. With typical rhetorical flourishes, President Trump said that only building more walls along the Mexican border could stop an onslaught of violent crime.
Do you think they're going to write a check for $20 billion or... So they apprehended people from the Middle East, and they do it all the time. You know, everybody says, well, where are they from? We're not talking about only Mexico. All over the world they come in because it's a weak spot. They make it strong, but the laws have to be strong, and we need security. We need the kind of backup that you want. This is common sense. They need a barrier. They need a wall. If you don't have it, it's going to be nothing but hard work and grueling problems. And by the way, and death. And death. A lot of death.
Now, few on either side of the debate dispute that the border poses a significant challenge, not least because of ruthless Mexican gangs bringing drugs to the huge U.S. market.
I think he's right because there is drugs, there is violence here, and with people that don't have any papers, you know, and the only result that they have is sending them back, you know, and why should that be like a constant thing? Why should it be like a crisis, like constantly taking people back, and with the wall, like people don't get to pass, illegal aliens don't get to pass.
Common sense. They need a barrier. They need
Now,
a wall.
President Trump made the border wall a key campaign promise and pledged to make Mexico pay for it. However, speaking on Thursday, President Trump claimed he never meant that Mexico would make a one-time payment.
When I say Mexico's going to pay for the wall, do you think they're going to write a check for $20 billion or $10 billion or $5 billion or 2 cents? No, they're paying for the wall in a great trade deal.
Meanwhile, anti-Trump protesters as well as Trump supporters gathered along opposite sides of the street in McAllen, Texas. Take a look.
The reason why we voted for our president, one of the reasons was the embassy in Jerusalem, and number two was that border wall. So our president's trying to do what us, the people, voted for him to do, and they're blocking him. Imagine that. They're supposed to submit to the president, respect the president, honor the president, and the president's trying to work for us, and he's working for us for free.
If the president were really interested in the views and the well-being of the border, he would meet with community members, he would meet with affected landowners by the border wall, but he's not doing that. Instead, he's just coming down for a photo op. It's a political stunt, part of his presidential campaign for 2020.
Now, McAllen is a heavily Latino city, separated by the border from its age-old twin town of Reynosa, and the presence of a significant Latinos for Trump crowd was also notable. Along both sides of the road outside McAllen International Airport, supporters and opponents of Donald Trump's wall spent hours shouting at each other. Meanwhile, President Trump qualified his often repeated claim that Mexico will pay for a new border wall, now saying the costs will be covered indirectly through his new North American trade deal. Take a look.
Party, the media, which I call the opposition party, a lot of the media, in coordination with the Democrats, they're not talking about the Democrats folding. For instance, this morning a number of people came out and said you do need very strong border security, and that includes a wall or whatever it is. A number of Democrats said that, but people don't like to report on it. We have tremendous unity of the Republican Party. It's really a beautiful thing to see. I don't think there'll be any breakaway because they know we need border security and we have to have it. Doing an even better job. So if we had the wall, we could have a tremendous saving. I really believe the steel barrier or wall would pay for itself every 3 or 4 months, and maybe even better than that in terms of overall. So that's it. Just a couple of things, because I know the fake news likes to say it. When during the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this, and I never meant they're going to write out a check. I said they're going to pay for it. They are. They are paying for it with the incredible deal we made called the United States, Mexico, and Canada USMCA deal. It's a trade deal. It has to be approved by Congress. It probably will be, other than maybe they even hold that up because they want to have, they want to do as much harm as they can, only because of the 2020 presidential election. So Mexico is paying for the wall indirectly. And when I said Mexico will pay for the wall in front of thousands and thousands of people, obviously they're not going to write a check, but they are paying for the wall indirectly many, many times over by the really great trade deal we just made. Congress has to approve the deal.
The Washington Post suggested the White House was laying the groundwork for declaring an emergency that would let Trump build sections of a wall, possibly using funds from the Army Corps of Engineers. The White House has directed the Corps to review its budget, including $13.9 billion in emergency funds earmarked last year by Congress, to see what money could be diverted to building a wall. Now, Trump said he has the absolute right to declare a national emergency at the southern border if Congress does not approve adequate funding. Here he is again at the White House. Let's listen in.
I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. The lawyers have so advised me. I'm not prepared to do that yet, but if I have to, I will. I have no doubt about it, I will. I have the absolute right to declare. This was passed by Congress. So when you say it wasn't passed by Congress, it was. Other presidents have used it, some fairly often. I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. I haven't done it yet. I may do it. If this doesn't work out, probably I will do it. I would almost say definitely.
Meanwhile, federal employees affected by the shutdown are demanding that President Trump and Congress end the shutdown, the government shutdown, with many struggling to make ends meet. The government has now been shut for 21 days as of now, as Trump and Democratic lawmakers remained at an impasse over his demand for the $5.7 billion to build a wall on the Mexican border. Meanwhile, putting a hold on the paychecks of non-essential government employees in several departments.
Well, it's going to put a strain on our household budget the longer it goes on because we've got a little bit saved up, but not enough to keep going indefinitely. So this, we're missing the first paycheck right now.
I'll survive, but I do important work, and my colleagues do important work, and my agency does important work, and it's work on behalf of the public. And we work for the government by choice, and we care about public service. To be taken away from our mission hurts, and it's bad for the country.
Payments are due. We have to pay our mortgage bill. My wife works for a nonprofit. I was the breadwinner, so to speak, and times are tough now. We don't have money coming in. Luckily, we have a little bit of savings we can live off of, but it's not going to last long. It should be a standalone issue if he wants to build this wall. It shouldn't be tied into other budget issues. There's no reason for it. That's the only reason he's getting this attention is because he's holding a hard line and holding us all hostage.
Now, earlier, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer held a media availability with furloughed workers to discuss the effects of the partial government shutdown on American families. Take a look.
Time for America's workers, and unfortunately, we meet during a dark time for America's workers. As government is shut down, it's a dark time. The President's manufacturing crisis reaches into the lives of millions of Americans. It threatens services and benefits they need to stay healthy and secure. It robs hardworking Americans of their paychecks. Instead, he has chosen a wall over workers. The President needs to end his senseless shutdown and reopen the government.
To use them as hostages through a temper tantrum by the President is just so wrong. So unfair, so mean-spirited. It ought to end, and it ought to end now. The President speaks all the time, using this shutdown to make our border secure. But the dark irony is, he's forcing TSA agents, CBP officers, and prison guards to work without pay. Tell me how that makes America more secure. But to hold these people hostage, instead of just letting them do their jobs, which they want to do while we work out our differences, so wrong.
To other news now, President Duterte said his government will not buy any more weapons from the United States. This after the Trump administration threatened to impose sanctions on countries purchasing Russian military equipment. In an address to the soldiers in Bulacan, President Duterte said he would not agree to buy equipment from the U.S. as it had been among the first countries to strongly criticize his war on drugs. The president also said he would replace weapons from the U.S., a traditional political and military ally of the Philippines, with equipment not only from Russia but also from South Korea and Israel, which he visited in 2018. A military agreement between the Philippines and the U.S. negotiated last year is blocked in the U.S. Congress after several senators refused to support it owing to what they say human rights violations during the anti-drugs campaign. Now, his remarks come a month also after Philippine Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana announced that Manila would buy 16 Black Hawk helicopters for around $240 million instead of the cheaper Russian equipment to avoid sanctions. The Philippines is planning to spend about $5.6 billion in the next 5 years to improve its defense capabilities and replace its World War II warships and Vietnam War-era starfighters and helicopters inherited from the U.S.
Pagka bumili ka sa China o maybe Russia, kasali ka sa embargo, you cannot trade with America. So para kang inipit doon sa sabi ko naman sa your superiors, and the civilian leaders. With that kind of arrangement, do not expect me to buy arms from the United States. Masama tignan eh. Yung panahon na kailangan natin ang tulong nila, hindi naman sila, kundi armas lang, talagang inipit nila tayo, tapos ang tumulong ang Russia, pati China.
Meanwhile, President Duterte said he's also considering arming mayors should attacks by communist rebel group, the NPA or New People's Army, continue. In a speech in Masbate City on Wednesday night, the president said he is considering allowing local chief executives to purchase firearms to combat the New People's Army. Take a listen.
Ako, sinasabi ko lang sa NPA, ayaw kong armasan ang mga tao. Pero pag sige gano'n ng I will allow the purchase of individual firearms. Pati yung mga mayor, bigyan ko yan ng armas talaga. Wala magawa.
The president repeatedly vowed to provide communist rebels with housing and livelihood if they lay down their arms and return to the government fold. Chinese media touted the mobilization of a far-reaching anti-ship ballistic missile, specifically highlighting its ability to target ships in the South China Sea. China's DF-26 ballistic missile has reportedly been mobilized in northwestern China, according to the Global Times. It cited state broadcaster China Central Television. The weapon, commonly described as a carrier killer, is an intermediate-range missile or ballistic missile capable of delivering both conventional and nuclear warheads to target on land and at sea. The report from the Global Times notes that the activation of the DF-26 comes just, quote, after a U.S. warship trespassed into China's territorial waters off the Shiza Islands or Paracel Islands in the South China Sea on Monday, a reference to a legal freedom of navigation operation conducted by destroyer USS McCampbell. The DF-26 missiles mobilized in the northwest regions are far from the South China Sea, but Chinese military experts assert that it has the range to cover the contested waterway. A U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer on Monday sailed near disputed islands in the South China Sea where Beijing has built military installations, sparking anger in China as trade talks between the two countries kicked off. U.S. Pacific Fleet spokeswoman Rachel McMahon said, quote, the USS McCampbell sailed within 12 nautical miles of the Paracel Islands to challenge excessive maritime claims. The U.S. and its allies periodically send planes and warships through the area, which is claimed by China to signal to Beijing their right under international law to pass through the waters. A Myanmar judge dismissed an appeal by two Reuters journalists jailed for 7 years while investigating atrocities committed against the Rohingya, dashing slim hopes that the pair could be freed early. Reporters Walone and 32 years old, and Kiao So U, 28, were arrested in Yangon in December 2017 and later jailed for violating the State Secrets Act, a charge Reuters said was trumped up to muzzle their reporting. Prosecutors say the two had classified information regarding security operations in Rakhine State, from where hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims fled during an army-led crackdown the United Nations has dubbed ethnic cleansing. Now, Ang Na-ing, a judge at the Yangon Regional Higher Court, said Friday the original verdict was not wrong according to the law and was a reasonable decision. The court decides to dismiss the appeal, he said. Lawyers can now appeal to the Supreme Court in Myanmar, a process that could take an estimated 6 months. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo insists that the U.S. troops will leave Syria ahead of a keynote speech aiming to lay out a coherent U.S. policy in the Middle East. Take a listen.
The President's been very clear, and Ambassador Bolton and I have been very clear about this too. The threat from radical Islamic terrorism is real. ISIS continues. We fight them in many regions around the country. Our commitment to continuing to prevent Daesh's growth, ISIS's growth, is real. It's important. We will continue at that. We're going to do it in a way in one particular place, Syria, differently. The United States decision, President Trump's decision to withdraw our troops has been made. We will do that. And so it is possible to hold in your head the thought that we would withdraw our forces, our uniformed forces from Syria and continue America's crushing campaign, where we have taken down 99% of the caliphate in Syria and continue that. And we are intent upon that.
Meanwhile, Turkey and the United States are now at loggerheads over the future of Syrian Kurdish forces, considered by Ankara as terrorists after the troops pull out. Turkish officials had a tense meeting this week with Trump's National Security Advisor John Bolton in Ankara, aimed at coordinating the pullout process after Bolton set conditions that appeared to postpone it indefinitely. The terms included total defeat of ISIS, still active in some Syrian regions, and ensuring that Kurdish fighters who fought alongside the Americans against the jihadists will be protected. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is sworn in by Supreme Court President Michael Moreno, surrounded by leaders of allied countries who attended the ceremony. Take a look.
Aquí estoy, listo de pie para democráticamente llevar las riendas de nuestra patria hacia un mejor destino, hacia un destino superior. Hemos cumplido y seguiremos cumpliendo. Como locos, descocados, enloquecidos, andan los gobiernos satélites del imperialismo norteamericano, inventando, haciendo, presionando, gritando. Yo le digo a nuestro pueblo siempre, allá ellos, con su desesperación, su nerviosismo.
Now, Maduro was re-elected last May in voting boycotted by the majority of the opposition and dismissed as a fraud by the U.S., European Union, and Organization of American States. Even as he was sworn in, the U.S. said it would not recognize him and vowed to increase the pressure on his regime. Meanwhile, in Paraguay, President Mario Abdo Benitez announced the closure of the Paraguayan embassy in Venezuela to show real support to the Venezuelan people. Benitez said that his decision will not affect the country's international commitments to the troubled state and express solidarity with the Venezuelan people. Shortly after Benitez's announcement, Peru followed suit, recalling its last diplomat from Caracas in protest at Maduro's illegitimate election. Peru's government also announced it will bar Maduro and 100 other Venezuelan officials from entering the country. Argentina's President Mauricio Macri also denounced Maduro, writing on Twitter that Venezuela is a dictatorship whose leader tries to mock democracy.
A Venezuela y que bendiga al Paraguay. Venezuela no implica de la democracia.
As Venezuelan president took his second term as the president of the country continues to struggle with a multitude of issues, including inflation, which the IMF predicts will reach a mind-boggling 10 million% this year, making it hard to live on just one salary, according to a state worker. Take a look.
Hace 2 años y medio para acá nos la estamos viendo bastante apretada, bastante apretada. Muy dura la situación. Y este último año ha sido descomunal la cuestión. No solamente para mí, sino para todos los venezolanos, pues. Se hacía un buen plan de ahorro, te alcanzaba para cualquier cosa. Ahora, no, ahorita no. 5 o 6 productos a lo máximo y más nada, pues olvídate de los zapatos, olvídate de la franela, olvídate de las camisas, olvídate de los boxers, olvídate de cualquier cosa, o sea, no te alcanza prácticamente para nada.
The news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Subaybayan ang mas pinalakasang saganang mamamayan. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga.
Welcome back. The World Bank's New Year message is not a cheery one. The organization warned on Wednesday that storm clouds are brewing for the global economy, with its January Global Economic Prospects report ominously titled Darkening Skies. The study showed that international trade and investment have softened, trade tensions remain high, and growth in emerging and developing economies is expected to remain flat in 2019. In addition, global growth risks being even weaker than anticipated. Governments are advised to increase support for central bank independence, ensure that their debt is sustainable, and maintain adequate buffers to ride out economic downturns. Tokyo prosecutors on Friday filed 2 new charges of financial misconduct against former Nissan chief Carlos Ghosn, meaning the auto tycoon is unlikely to be leaving his jail cell soon. Lawyers for the former jet-setting executive filed a bail application hours later, but have acknowledged that he will probably be detained until a trial. Ghosn denies any wrongdoing and argued in a dramatic first court appearance on Tuesday that he has been wrongly accused and unfairly detained. He was already facing a first charge for allegedly underreporting his compensation over 5 years to the tune of 5 billion yen or $46 million in official documents to shareholders. The charges filed today allege that the underreporting continued for another 3 years, and they include a charge of aggravated breach of trust over a complex alleged scheme in which Ghosn is said to have tried to transfer losses on foreign exchange contracts to Nissan's books. As part of the scheme, he's accused of also using company funds to repay a Saudi acquaintance who put up collateral for the contracts. Prosecutors also filed charges Friday against Nissan and Ghosn aide Greg Kelly over the additional 3 years of underreporting pay.
Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour.
Meanwhile, Bangladeshi garment workers in Dhaka demonstrated for the 5th day in a row to demand higher wages following deadly clashes with police earlier in the week. Take a look. Toyota announced a recall of 1.7 million vehicles in North America as part of a general effort to replace defective Takata airbags tied to some 20 deaths worldwide. The sprawling recall concerned 4Runner SUVs from model years 2010 to 2016, Corolla sedans and Matrix hatchbacks from 2010 to 2013, and Sienna minivans from 2011 to 2014. The recall also involves luxury Lexus models, ES350 sedans 2010 to 2012, GX460 SUVs 2010 to 2017, IS250C and IS350C convertibles from 2010 to 2015, IS250 and IS350 sedans from 2010 to 2013, and Lexus ISF sedans 2010 to 2014. SI and XB compacts from the 2010 to 2015 model years are also involved. Dealerships will replace either the airbag inflators or entire airbag systems. This is Toyota's third large-scale Takata-related recall in 5 months. In November, the firm recalled 1.6 million vehicles worldwide. In other business news, 4 Berlin men went on trial Thursday, charged over the spectacular museum theft of a giant commemorative gold coin called the Big Maple Leaf and valued at 3.75 million euros or $4.3 million. Take a look. A robot for a customer reception at a supermarket, Sophia, the world's first robot citizen, a robot cat to cuddle, and another that accompanies autistic children. The CES in Las Vegas once again shows off a wide variety of robots. Take a look.
Children with autism, they couldn't relate a specific facial expression to some emotion. So this emotional training and social skills learning are very important for the children to learn to be independent in their future life.
He is a robotic pet. It lets you, so it's your companion, and you can take care of it. So you can pat it and you can feed it. You feed it by drawing on a tablet, and then it guesses what you draw.
Patterns that are trained from all of civilization is one nation, and the nation should be.
Meanwhile, a number of flying car designs will be on display in Vegas, portending what many see as an inevitable airborne future for short-range transport. Take a look. Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
तो खुली
ang MTRCB ang mag-provide na appropriate ratings sa lahat ng TV shows. Para ugaliin ng pamilya ang responsableng panonood. Teamwork tayo, parents!
Rated G, good for all. Oops, rated PG. Dapat may mga magulang para sagutin ang mga tanong ng kabataan.
Grabe, rated SPG, maselan!
Higpitan ang paggabay.
Pag rated MTRCB, rated responsable.
Vlastimil Gular's life took an unwelcome turn a year ago. Minor surgery on his vocal cords revealed throat cancer, which led to the loss of his larynx and with it, his voice. But the 51-year-old father of 4 is still chatting away using his own voice rather than the tinny timbre of a robot, thanks to an innovative app developed by 2 Czech universities. Take a look.
Vlastimil Gular lost his voice after undergoing surgery for throat cancer a year ago. But thanks to a high-tech app spearheaded by 2 Czech universities, he is still able to use it.
Our project is unique in that we are trying to create a tailor-made synthetic voice for each user.
The app was developed for people who are set to lose their voice due to a laryngectomy, or removal of the larynx, a typical procedure for throat cancer. Ahead of surgery, scientists first record the patient reading as many sentences as possible. Then they use statistical models to create synthetic speech that can be played on the patient's mobile phones or tablets via the app. Jana is in the process of recording her voice ahead of a minor operation on her throat.
If I have a problem and can't speak with my own voice, I would like my small children to still hear my voice, not a robotic one.
Ideally, patients need to record more than 10,000 sentences to provide scientists with enough material to produce their synthetic voice. But cancer often demands swift treatment, which can limit a patient's time to do recordings.
It's often a matter of weeks, 3 at the most, during which you can record the voice.
Vlastimil managed to record only 477 sentences before having his larynx removed.
I underwent total laryngectomy within 23 days of diagnosis.
But even this paltry input provided enough information to produce a voice that he can call his.
A tearful Andy Murray announced he would likely retire this year due to severe pain from a hip injury. And the Warriors coach Steve Kerr said Golden State center DeMarcus Cousins, targeting a January 18 NBA season debut after nearly a year sidelined by injury, will start immediately upon his return. Here's Tenny Samagi for more.
A tearful Andy Murray on Friday announced he would likely retire this year due to severe pain from a hip injury, saying next week's Australian Open could be the last tournament of a glittering career. The former #1 and 3-time Grand Slam winner broke down in a press conference in Melbourne as he said the pain had become unbearable.
Does that mean that, no, but the pain is kind of the driving factor, because I can play with limitations, that's not an issue. It's having the limitations, and then also the pain is not allowing me to enjoy competing or training or any of the stuff that I love about tennis. I said to my team, look, I think I can kind of get through this until Wimbledon. That is where I would like to. That's where I would like to stop playing. But I'm also not certain I'm able to do that. Yeah, there's a chance of that for sure, because, yeah, like I said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm able to play through the pain, you know, for another 4 or 5 months. Been struggling for a long time. I've been in a lot of pain for, well, it's been probably about 20 months now. I've pretty much done everything that I could to, you know, to try and get my hip feeling better, and you know, hasn't helped loads. I'm going to play. I mean, I can still play to a level, not a level that I'm happy playing at, but also, you know, it's not just that. The pain is you know, is too much, really.
He will be remembered as the first British man to win Wimbledon in 77 years, and as a player who battled his way to the top in a golden era for the game, alongside Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, and Rafael Nadal. While he intends to begin his opening round match against 22nd seed Roberto Bautista Agut next week, how his body withstands potentially grueling 5-set clashes in energy-sapping heat remains to be seen. Golden State center DeMarcus Cousins, targeting a January 18 NBA season debut after nearly a year sidelined by injury, will start immediately upon his return, Warriors coach Steve Kerr said on Thursday. Cousins, a 4-time All-Star, hasn't played since his left Achilles tendon ruptured as he was playing for the New Orleans Pelicans against the Houston Rockets on January 26, 2018. Cousins joined the 2-time defending NBA champion Warriors on a 1-year, $5.3 million free agent contract in the expectation that he would be able to play the second half of the season. Kerr did not confirm that Cousins will start against the Los Angeles Clippers on January 18, saying the team needed to have some leeway. Kerr didn't rule out the possibility that Cousins could start in a January 16 game against his old team, the Pelicans. Kerr said Cousins had made big steps in his rehabilitation of late. Kerr noted how hard it was for Cousins to be sidelined for so long, but cautioned that he didn't expect his return to competition to be smooth sailing. Meanwhile, here are the results of the games today in the NBA. For Ian Sports, I am Tenny Samagi and I am 1 with 25.
Visitors to Helsinki's annual Light Festival braved freezing temperatures and snow to explore the colorful illuminations dotted around the Finnish capital. The Lux Light Festival is held at the height of winter, when days are just 6 hours long, and it showcases exhibits by Finnish and international artists, as well as works by local school children. Organizers expect 500,000 people to attend this year. Take a look.
Because we have such a short daylight, we have daylight like only 5.5 hours, so it's a long dark nights, and when there's darkness, that's sort of resource for artificial lighting what we use for the art pieces.
All right, and that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Eagle News International, I'm Alma Angeles, always 1 with 25. Good night.
yung pala yung pala, ang galing. May exam po ba na para malaman ko kung ano yung masabagay ng skills ko?
Si Gov kasi concern siya sa youth natin. Para at least kahit high school pa lang sila, alam na nila yung steps na iti-take nila para sa youth tour nila.
Tama yun. Kung may ilagay dito yung Boys Scout of the Philippines Award.